Hey, Peter here.
Dave here.
Hey folks, today we want to do a different update. We want to share a little bit about what's happening in HRM. There's a lot of things going on, there's a lot of changes, and this can be the start of the information that you're looking for. So let's start maybe with backyard suites and Airbnbs. Now, there was a law put in place last year that's coming into effect now with Airbnbs. The biggest one that it entails is if you have an Airbnb and it is your principal home, you actually have to live in your principal home while you rent out the Airbnb. That's a shift from what it was if you're in a residential zoning area. If it's in a commercial area or multifamily area, it doesn't affect you. But literally, if you are renting out your home as an Airbnb, can't do it anymore. Talk to your counselor, make sure you're legal, because to be frank, somebody's going to come after you, because that's just the reality of where it's at. Backyard suites. Now, this is the other thing that's happening. Of course, we're looking for greater density in the city. So the city, of course, has approved backyard suites in most residential locations. Now, when we talk about backyard suites, it can be many things. It can be a conversion of a garage. It can be putting in a new structure. It can be adding a unit. All of these things have to be done through permits. Now, the other thing that you have to think about is if you're putting in a backyard suite, there are options for you where you're going to be able to get rebates from the government. Now, you have to go jump through hoops, but it's very expensive, and that's the reason that I want to talk about this a little bit. The price of backyard suites is going to come down over time if you're bringing in units, but if you're an early adapter, to be blunt, you're going to pay the top price, because the reality is they're not being built, they're not being brought in, because the volume isn't there. But as things change and literally manufactured units start coming online, the prices of these units will come down, and it'll start making more sense, because it has to make financial sense in order for you to add a suite to your home if you're looking for revenue. David, let's talk a little bit about housing development. What are you seeing?
Sure, so there's been a proposal for a big new development out in the Halifax exhibition area. You know that spot?
Exhibition Park?
Exhibition Park,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. So that place has not been great for a while. The best
Yes.
thing there is the Tim Hortons.
Yeah, there's not too much there.
Yeah.
So, good spot for a big development, right?
Yeah.
So the proposal is going to be for 5,800 new units to come in over the next few years.
Okay, so what do we expect with that? Because that's right on the Prospect Road. What
Yeah.
kind of challenges, what kind of objections should we be seeing?
Yeah, so this is early. This is early in the proposal process. There's going to have to be studies to be done, environmental studies, infrastructure studies, because there's not all that many people living there right now compared with what we'd be looking at. There would be 12,000 new people coming in, right?
Gotcha.
So we're going to have to talk about upgrading sewer, upgrading water, and then there's the issue with traffic too, because there's going to be an influx of cars.
With
So that's all
municipal,
stuff.
provincial, and federal governments all being very keen on development these days, you can see that developments like this are probably going to get greenlit faster than what we've seen in the past in HRM. I'd like to talk a little bit about Bedford, because this is one of the spots that I spend a lot of energy in. Now, what's interesting is that the floodplain, which unfortunately is a reality these days, has changed there. So where we see houses on Union Street obviously being at risk, Bedford Mall being at risk, but now the floodplain has changed there so that even Sunnyside and Chickenburger are in that zone. So where there had been talk about doing some redevelopment in that area is now at risk. Now, what we are also seeing in Bedford is a shift. So Sandy Lake, now this is near and dear to a lot of folks because it is a great spot to go. That area is now slated for development. Now, talking to the local councillor, basically the early proposals are to keep things as far away from the lake as possible and more on the outside of things. But you'll see lots of changes when it comes to these things. Basically, the developers will come with their initial proposals. There will be a lot of resistance, and usually a compromise will be held with that. Now, the other thing that we are seeing with zoning changes, so basically the federal government has proposed a dramatic change on infrastructure, zoning, and especially in some of the main corridors. Now, this is also going to come into a lot of argument and debate, because basically federal government is trying to tread on provincial and municipal governments' positions. So basically they have no right to do this, but they're giving a pile of money to the people who adapt. So continuing on with the zoning changes, right in the city, there's a lot of stuff happening. Tell me about a couple of things that you've noticed. Or
all right, so the purpose of these new zoning changes is because we don't have nearly enough houses in Halifax. We're at what, 1% vacancy rate? Yeah, and we've had a population growth over the last 5 years of 14%.
I'm going to actually add one thing. On the peninsula, there used to be 90,000 people living on the peninsula.
Yeah.
And then over the years, they changed the density laws to actually make it more difficult. So basically things like rooming houses were phased out.
Yeah.
What do you think the population is on the peninsula now?
I
I know, 75,000 people. We actually have less people.
Wow.
And we have more buildings. So we've taken a bunch of steps backwards over the years in density, and now obviously they're trying to rectify that by adding some of these new proposals. One, of course, was these high rises near universities. That got quashed pretty fast, didn't it?
Yeah, they just quashed that the other day. People who live around those areas obviously weren't that thrilled about having high rises in their backyards. So now instead what the universities are going to do is they're going to be building high rises on campus instead of around campus.
Now, they're still talking about fourplexes in a lot of locations, is that right?
Yes, yes. So we're looking at changing the zone, or not we.
Not we,
Not
not us.
Not we.
No, not us. No comments below, okay? That's not on that stuff, other than how awesome
So the
we are.
proposal is talking about instead of limiting the amount of units to 1 or 2 all around the city, you can have at least 4 units in a lot of zoning, sometimes even up to 8, depends on the zoning in the area, but a lot more units allowed per lot than compared to what we have now.
So that density that we're experiencing here, or that conversation, is obviously really common in other locations. If you're in and around Toronto, if you're on the West Coast, this is very common. For us, this is all brand new. A lot of these things are preliminary, we're just sharing them with you, but keep in touch. If you have any questions, reach out to us, because some of these things can cost you money. If you have an Airbnb and you're operating illegally, boy, that's going to cost you some money. If you're thinking about doing a backyard suite right now, you may want to think twice before you do it, because it's going to be very costly to adapt early. So anyway, we're here for you. We just wanted to send you a little different update from what we usually do. Reach out to us with any questions, and we're always here for you.